All right, and welcome to the Fandom Zone. This is General Zod, and I'm back for the lighter side of Zod, Fandom Zone Talks, where I have the great opportunity to interview special guests here on the channel. So I am finally doing this interview. We've been playing like uh, interview tag with this person for quite some time now, but finally I have you here. And go ahead and introduce yourself for all of the people who may be living under a rock and don't know who you are, good sir.
What's going on, everybody? This is author Stephen Walton. I'm writing a book series called the Fandom Menace Volumes. You can reach me at Lodonis on Twitter or check out my YouTube channel, author Stephen Walton. And I am here with the great evil genius Zod to have a conversation. This poor guy. We've been trying to plan this out for a while now and never got to nail it down till just now. Hail the Fandom Menace! Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was supposed to do it one week, and then I got sick, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to do it," but I sounded terrible. I'm like, "Nah, I can't do this because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to last." And welcome, Biden. Good to see you, buddy. And then the other week you had something you had to take care of, and I was just like, "Oh my goodness, this is not going to work." So I rescheduled. I had Miss on here, and we had a great conversation. But now I finally got to get you here in the Phantom Zone, and this is Fandom Talks, where I do my serious side of things and interviewing various people. And Stephen, you've been working on a couple of things. So before we get too deep into everything, I wanted to know what made you want to be a writer in general.
Well, imagination. Really, I had a deep imagination when I was a kid. Kind of grew up in a house where it was good to have an imagination to keep distracted from some of the more vulgar and offensive things that were going on the kids shouldn't see. So eventually, I got to a point where I hit around 12, and I just picked up a pencil and started writing into a 5-star notebook. Before I knew it, I had a bunch of 5-star notebooks full of stories. Got together with a couple friends who were comic book lovers like myself at the time. I really enjoyed reading Marvel and DC, the X-Men mostly. I really enjoyed reading those stories, as well as watching great entertainment, Excalibur, Highlander, various other Lucasfilm movies, Indiana Jones, Star Wars. My father was a Trekkie, so I got involved in Star Trek. And my father let me get involved in probably some material that I shouldn't have seen at such a young age. But seeing those things matured matured my imagination to the point where I could understand certain deeper meanings in things. So Star Trek themes I could understand really well and some other a horror from a lot of horror genre. My dad used to sit me down as a young teenager and watch. Oh, Stevie, look, this movie is illegal in 38 states. Check this out. But being able to have such a wide berth of different influences creatively that I was watching and reading really made me want to create my own stories. And then I started on the Elemental Saga, and I've been writing those short stories for 20 something years. I have 2 books. I had 2 books out, but I've taken them off the market because I want to retool them and rebrand them and put them back out. So writing's always been a big passion of mine. I've been into history and science. I've written history and science articles for various websites over the years. Never really became a constant contributor. Just something piqued my interest, and I felt like I needed to speak on it. I would put something together and publish an article.
Wow. So I mean, because before I got into the Phantom Menace stuff, I wanted to kind of get your resume. It's easy for me to find out information about YouTubers, but I know that you come from the writing community, and I've talked with Mad Squirrel and everyone, and I found out a bit more, and I looked at your awesome promo you had on Twitter, by the way, and it is really interesting to try to look things up on you, man, because normally I have an easier time being able to find out much more about the people that I'm going to have here on the channel. But one thing I do know, and I have followed a lot that you come from, is the Fandom Menace side of things. So for all of those who might not know, how did you get started with wanting to A, write about the Fandom Menace, and B, even like getting in touch with people from the Fandom Menace? I mean, what really started the genesis of this book? And I mean, you're part of the Fandom Menace, man. So what started started you down that road?
Well, I was going through my son and I were going through a pretty rough period. He's been kind of disconnected from his mother due to various things concerning addictions, and hasn't really been a part of his life. I've been taking care of him on my own for quite a few years now, having to deal with that and watching her fall apart. And I love that girl. I loved his mother to death. And that separation really hit me hard. Trying to rebuild ourselves financially, keeping our place, doing what we had to do was very difficult. And I'd have to say that of all the trials and tribulations of my life, 2017 was about the worst. The partner that I was with at the time, her mother was passing away from cancer, so we had her on hospice. It was stage 4. So her and her kids were going through that, and we had to stay strong through that. And I was the only person pulling in money because my partner at the time, her mom was dying right in front of her. There wasn't much she could do. And so there was a very wide array of bad things going on all at the same time, and I had to just remain strong. And my escapism was this new Star Trek series that was going to be coming up, and I was really excited about. And so I kind of kept my focus on my escapism, and then Star Trek Discovery came out, and they gave me Kling Orcs, and I was like, damn it, what is this? And it was nothing like the Star Trek that I had grown up with and that I had loved through my 20s and into my 30s, and I still rewatch those series to this day. And then The Last Jedi, and I was okay with The Force Awakens, but I was really hoping that Episode 8 would flush out all of the questions and we would be able to see. I wanted to see Luke Skywalker. I mean, I don't care if I sound like a kid. I wanted to see my childhood hero on screen with a modern industrial lights and magic, with all of the money that Disney can put behind a product. When I first found out that Disney bought Lucasfilm, I was excited for it. I was like, this is going to be great. There's no way this can go wrong. And then The Last Jedi. And so that was kind of like a gut punch. For me, I know that it hurt. It hurt millions of people. In my specific situation, my escapism kind of slapped me in the face and kicked me in the balls. And then I started to get told by these creatives that I was a hateful racist and a misogynist. I didn't like this terrible creative direction that they had taken, and that my son was going to grow up to be a freaking shooter and incel and a racist and all this shit. My son's a token white boy in his crowd. What are you talking about? Being told by these creatives, these elitists who have more money than they know what to do with, that that can choose between steak and lobster for dinner, that they can buy 6 cars, they can buy 3 homes, these types of people telling me at that time in my life when I'm struggling to keep the lights on that I'm just a racist, misogynist piece of crap because I don't like your political propaganda. That really hurt me. What really brought me in, honestly, was January of 18. Jeremy Griggs, Geeks and Gamers, this time to admit the truth about The Last Jedi. I've said it 1,000 times. Don't know how I got there. Don't know what I put on YouTube or looked up, but that video came up and I started watching it, and that led me to World Class. Led me to go back and further into World Class's videos from years before, and look at some of their material, and just seeing this collection of voices that started speaking up. That became my escapist entertainment, because I could understand what these people were saying, where they were coming from. And even though I did not know them, and I have no illusions at the time of being their friends, having people out there that were copacetic to and understanding what I was feeling kind of made them friends, but in an internet friend kind of way. Not that I ever spoke to them or anything. And seeing the rise of Ethan Van Sciver, just coming out of nowhere. He had been doing his comic book thing. I'd watch a little bit of it because I am interested in the arts as a writer, but I'm not a visual artist. And then watching him transform into what he is now, that was really inspirational for me. Seeing someone who was basically drummed out of his own industry, had to go independent, and then became so successful. That was an inspiration to me. Watching Jeremy's channel grow, watching him just be himself and just speak his truth and what he wanted to say. That was an inspiration. Jeff Hicks reading my letter to Bob Iger on one of his videos, which was just like, oh my God. As soon as I realized he was reading it, I paused the phone and threw it down because I was like, oh my God, oh, Disney's going to hate me now. Like, there's going to be a mouse hit squad coming after me right now. But I listened to the whole video, and I realized then that my words could have meaning. They could have an impact. And going on, Doomcock, Nerdrotic, Mecca, people who love Star Trek, and got to hear what they were saying, and started going back and looking at their past videos. Really got it steamrolling within me. At the time, during 2018, I couldn't financially support these people, and I wanted to, not because I was, not particularly because I was a fanboy, but because I believed in what they were doing. But I did not have the message of what they were doing and I was talking to people in the chat and meeting all these new people. Bear, for instance, he's on the show with me every Friday night. I was talking with him in the chat since oh God, early 2018, and now we're on a show together doing this, doing YouTube. So meeting all of these great people, and just seeing the message, watching them support one another, watching them defend one another, watching them lift up and help one another, help each other's channels grow, reaching down to new people and helping them was very inspirational to me. And so when I came out of the dark period, when things had calmed down and I was starting to get back up on my feet and things were starting to even out, I wanted to give back. And I reached out to Jeremy Griggs, and I asked him if I could write a book about his company. I wanted to do a company profile on Geeks and Gamers. I sent him a packet of information, spoke to him, spoke to his senior financial officer, had a couple phone conferences, and then somewhere around Star Wars Celebration, lost contact. He just got busy. Jeremy gets busy. He's got his fingers in a lot of pies. He's doing a lot of different things. So I already had about 2,500 words written out because he had told me, go ahead and start writing. Started doing research, started putting my papers together, started putting chapters together, outlines for them, and then lost contact with them, which I didn't take any offense to. Maybe I wasn't sure. He didn't outright tell me he didn't want to do it, but he just had a lot of things going on. And when I'm a writer, man, when I'm passionate about something, when I'm ready to start working, I'm in the heat of it. I've got to keep working. So I took not all, but some of the themes that I had taken from Jeremy Griggs' book, which maybe I'll write one day, How to Monetize SJWs, and it was a great title. And I just started off with chapter 1 and began writing it. And as I began to write it, I started reaching out to different YouTubers because I wanted to have. It wasn't that I wanted to have some legitimacy, of course. But I also wanted a chance for these people to speak so that, so that they could give their own interpretation of everything that was going on. So I wasn't necessarily speaking on behalf of everyone. I was lucky enough to get a hold of a small group of YouTubers that really helped me out. I mean, Mecha Random 42 and Dictor Van Doomcock. I love those guys. They were the first two to jump on and say, yeah, we can do this. Dictor was a little bit worried about his copyright being respected. Rightfully so, because that's his character, and I think that what I've done in the book, as far as mentioning that that's his copyright and recognizing that intellectual property, I believe he'll be satisfied with what I've done. And same thing with Mecca, Mark with a C. I started talking to Stephanie Janicic, started talking to just a few different YouTubers at a time, and then and then really nothing came of it for a little bit. What ended up happening was I almost gave up. I almost gave up a couple times on this project. But I put a list out there of recommended channels. And I said, look, this is a page of channels, list of recommended channels I want to put at the end of the book. And that got me some traction, got me a hold of Lethal Lightning, Black Angus, Drunk 3PO, Snow Dub Music and Entertainment. Those guys took me in. Next thing I know, I'm doing interviews with Lethal, and that led on to Mary and the Kotar chat and all those wonderful people. And that kept me going. And then the GoFundMe to get things started, that didn't work out very well. But the community pulled together. I talked with Jeremy Griggs one day about something unrelated, and Jeremy, is probably one of the most wonderful people. And I'm not saying that just because I've spoken with him many times over the last year, and in every conversation, he's always straight to the point, which I respect, and at times very, very, very inspirational. And he said to me, he was asking me about what's going on with the project. I said, the GoFundMe is kind of failing. He said, I know what you're going to ask me. And I said, no, Jeremy, I don't want to ask that of you, because I want our friendship to be based on friendship, not on me using you for something. And that's when he said, no, you're not using me, I'm offering. And so I was like, okay, well, that makes it okay. And I got on Geeks, I got on Geeks and Gamers. Because really, while I've been talking to all these people, I've tried to remember two things. One, everybody on YouTube, we're all just people. All of us. We're all just people, And another thing is, I'm trying to represent a group of volumes that represent the community, that are about our community, our fandom, our collective, whatever you want to call it, our movement, our hashtag. And so I need to be genuine with each and every person I interact with. And I've managed to do that through a couple storms in the last, few months between different factions getting in on each other and fighting with each other. But I've managed to stay genuine, and that's one of the things that attracted me to being in the Fandom Menace and wanting to write about the Fandom Menace and document this for posterity, for future generations, so that in 20 years or 15 years, whenever it is, whatever SJW movement creeps up, then we can have a reference guide. Look, this happened before. This is how it was dealt with, and this is how it ended. Are you sure you want to get woke and go broke?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And onto your point of Jeremy also inspired me way back when I first started. I actually started in my car doing videos before YouTube changed, as they always do, seemingly to try to suppress the smaller content creators because they know they can't hit the big ones. That age-old argument. And when I started doing it, I remember watching a video. I can't for the life of me remember what video it is, but Jeremy had said it doesn't matter where you record or the quality, just if you have something to say, get on there and say it. And if you're intriguing enough, and if people like you enough, they'll come, the followers come. And I understand about what you went through when you're talking to bigger channels or you have bigger channel interactions, and you try to, you don't want to come off as someone clout chasing, you want to be genuine, and you have a genuine admiration for these people. And a lot of those names you listed, like I've watched all their channels. I love their content. I actually, in late night talks, had EVS one time in my chat. And
nice.
I don't know how it happened. I don't know if he was perusing and it just happened to be, I was in one of the things, or in the algorithm somewhere. And I didn't even believe it was him until he said, yeah, this is the channel. And he gave, and, he tweeted it out or whatever. But, people forget that they're normal people, no matter how many subscribers that they have. And most of them are pretty down to earth, nice people. And I wanted to get you on because I have always been a fan of writing and literature. I myself have done poems and short stories and things like that. But seeing the project that you took to undertake, it very much fascinated me and intrigued me. And like kind of hearing like how this got rolling. And I remember seeing you like sort of entering KOTOR and things like that and hearing the buzz around it. I'm like, writer, interesting. And, as many YouTubers, I got busy with stuff, but I said, like, I would like to have this guy on and talk to him about his book. And for a while you weren't doing like YouTube channels or anything, you're more like write a book. I'm like, it's not a YouTuber. This is very fascinating. Like, I gotta know what started him on this path. And for a while, I'm like, I came into the collective, and I'm like, well, I needed the whole thing explained, like what's the difference between the menace and the collective and stuff like that. And I said when I do this interview, I wanted to dive into that. So for you, or for some of the people listening, if you can break it down, what do you, in your mind, see the Phantom Menace as, the Phantom Collective as? And in a lot of senses, and someone had brought this to my attention one night in our green room, and said, well, do you think we're part of Phantom Menace? It's like, yeah, we do the same things they do. We've had some of them on our channels. Like, I guess we are, and it's okay to embrace that title, because it's okay to say no to the bullshit going on and the hypocrisy of the media. I think in the end, we're all fighting the hypocrisy of the media. That's the overall arching thing. But if you could give us a breakdown and sort of in your mind tell us what you think the Phantom Menace is, what the Phantom Collective is, how they intermingle, they intertangle, and just give someone kind of a reference point. So when they hear these terms thrown out, they don't get a preconception from the other side.
Gotcha. All right. Well, first off, I'd like to mention real quick that in case y'all smaller channels don't know, those bigger guys lurk. They lurk on your, they'll come onto your live streams and they will lurk. They won't say a word and they'll just listen to you. So just understand that one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing is the culture that was handed down by these bigger guys. All right. They help to support one another. And if they see something that's good, if they see you do it, if they see potential in you, they're going to reach out. They're going to let you know. So the Fandom Menace actually started back in 1999, 2000. The Fandom Menace was a consumer movement against George's direction. They thought that the Phantom Menace was way too geared toward children, and that they were upset with that. They wanted to continue a mature story because they had grown. They kind of missed the point, in my opinion, that George was creating that movie to appeal to their kids and then bring everybody together as they went. That is my opinion. But the Phantom Menace at that time, in that first iteration, had its own successes, because we saw the Clone Wars and the Revenge of the Sith eventually become more and more mature themes. The Phantom Menace in its current iteration, at the time that Ethan Van Sciver said, hey, we're the Phantom Menace, that is really more, I think it's mainly geared towards Star Wars, Disney Lucasfilm. When you talk about the Phantom Menace, it's a loose affiliation of different voices and different opinions, but we're all fighting for the ability to have different opinions and to be able to criticize and to be able to like what we like, and also fighting against the over-politicization of entertainment by fringe idealists who are now in creative control. You have this group of nerds and geeks who grew up liking comic books, liking different cartoons. I mean, even adults can like cartoons. There's nothing wrong with that. Like anime, movies, all these different types of franchises, and they are now being taken over by the bullies who used to tell us we were geeks and nerds in high school and middle school. That's basically what has happened here. Those people have become successful. They've taken control of the franchises. The bullies are now running the insane asylum. And the difference, I think, the reason that the collective happened, I think, had a lot to do with Flipped Out, the founders of the Fandom Collective. Those guys were trying to expand upon the Phantom Menace, because as the Phantom Menace began to grow, and people began to realize that this is not just about Star Wars. This is about Star Trek, Doctor Who, even the Battlestar Galactica. Some of those guys, some of them from that fandom has come in. This is about comic books. This is about anime. This is about video games. This is about ethics in journalism, in gaming journalism, and entertainment journalism. It has a lot. It borrows a lot from Gamergate, which came before it, and then Comicsgate, which is also very interwoven into what the Phantom Menace is. So the Phantom Collective is an expansion upon that wide umbrella that you can either choose to say you are or not. I mean, by definition, George Lucas is Phantom Menace. He was screwed over by Disney. They did not take his direction. He does not like the sequel trilogy. He has opinions about it. George Lucas is Phantom Menace. another quote thing. When I dedicated my book to George Lucas, I never really understood. I didn't know his full name, but apparently George's full name is George Walton Lucas Jr. I just thought that was funny. So I started when you as this community grows, which is one of the reasons why I'm writing these books, is to get more exposure out there, is to get in the literary sphere the idea that this is going on, to put it on paper, to legitimize it to a degree, to get the noise out, because there's got to be millions and millions of people out there who feel the same way we do and don't understand what's going on, because we constantly get labeled toxic, racist, misogynist, blah 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 blah, and all that propaganda and all that rhetoric. But the collective, to me, I'm Fandom Collective. I was brought in by the Fandom Collective. I certain Fandom Menace voices, and I consider Fandom Menace voices to be like first and second wave Fandom Menace YouTubers. Fandom Collective voices to me are a little bit of second wave and third wave Fandom Menace voices who have created their own collective, which is more, I think the wording itself is meant to allow people to be more comfortable in coming in, because it's the Fandom Collective as opposed to the Fandom Menace, which is a menacing sounding organization or group or hashtag. But really, we're all the same. We're all a part of the same movement. It's all the same consumer movement, and it's very interwoven with gaming, anime, comics, television, across various franchises internationally. It doesn't matter what race you are, doesn't matter what sex you are, doesn't matter what sexual orientation you are, doesn't matter if you feel like transitioning. It does not matter. Those things don't matter. What matters is that we all have the ability to have an opinion, that we are not silenced for our opinion because it is not condoned by the content creators. And this movement, this hashtag, is just the consumer, the fans, the consumers of these products standing up and saying, no, we're not going to be labeled and attacked because we don't like your product, which is being made to create divisions, where these franchises and these entertainment properties were created to unify and entertain.
And that was very elegantly put, man. I can't even follow that up. And really quick before I continue, I wanted to highlight someone, because this person has been following my channel fairly a lot, and that is Tommy, who's in the chat.
Tommy,
give him a big congrats. He reached 100 subs on his channel, and he's a really great guy. And one of the subs was recently, it was a clip from one of my late night talks where it's called Improper Jeremy, and I dipped out of Jeremy's live stream this week in bullshit because I have a girlfriend, and it's kind of a new thing. I went to the movies with her, and Proper Jeremy just comes on and roasts me, and I was half expecting it, and it was just kind of funny the way that the timing of it was, and Tommy clipped it and he made a video of it, and it's just simply hilarious. I was going back through listening to it, and it was really funny, and him, the Senate, and a lot of other people, Butterfingers and stuff, have been following me before my channel was at 343. So I wanted to give him a proper shout out and
Absolutely.
give him a congratulations, because I remember so long ago hitting that 100 sub milestone.
Yeah.
And now I'm praying to get into the 400 or 500.
We'll do it together, man. We rise together. And it's people like Tommy. I don't really remember seeing Tommy before then, a few months ago, but he's in every one of my live streams. He's always supportive. I see him in other chats. That's like one of my chat brethren. I'm in there hailing each other and asking each other what's up. And there's millions more Tommies out there that we haven't reached yet, that don't know that we're here, that we're a collective, and that we're here to support one another. And hail Tommy. I subscribe to his channel. I'm glad to see him hit 100. Man, I want to have you come on the fourth wave. And the culture that was handed down to us by the founding fathers of the Fandom Menace, which is what I call them, Jeff Hicks, Jeremy Griggs, and Ethan Van Sciver, is to help support one another. Look out for each other, help each other grow, and that's what we're here to do. So, Tommy, if there's ever anything I can do for you, brother, just let me know. Hail.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting you would say that because the person who kind of put me on the map, and I always got to give her credit every time I tell this story or talk about how the fandom zone had started to rise, was Mary Mayhem, who's just an amazing person, and you know, she deserves every bit of good things that are coming her way. But you know, I started out at like 50 subs, and then you know, through her and doing shenanigans and stuff, back back in the days, you know, it gained me traction. And I remember asking her, I'm like, man, you know, you done so much for me, like what can I do? And she was like, you know, just pay it forward. And that kind of stuck with me, which was what actually inspired me to start this segment of my channel, because it's been brought to my attention that I have become a podcast, which is funny how you don't realize how your channel changes and kind of evolves into its own thing, right? Like a story. You start writing something, but it takes a life of its own and it grows. And, you know, you look back and you go, wow, I started here and I end up here. So it's weird to see the progression of how these things take shape and they form. And you know, it's like you said, it's influenced by the group of people you're with, by the mode. And I'll tell you, I actually came from a different side of the fandom. I do agree with the TLJ stuff, but and I'm an avid Star Wars fan. But for me, I came from the Harry Potter side of things.
Gotcha.
I was YouTubing before this. I had done a few small reviews, you know, nothing big. I had 2 or 3 people watch the videos, sometimes no one. And then I put out a video for her Fantastic Beasts 2, The Crimes of Grindelwald, where I was pissed about what they did with Dumbledore and some of the other characters. And I just went off. I was in my friend's room when I recorded it. It's hilarious. You can hear his mom yelling in the background. But I was so pissed. I'm like, I got to record this right now before I forget my thoughts. So I just, you know, I just picked up my phone. It's still the same crappy phone that I have now with a cracked screen. And I just sort of like went to town and started recording. And yeah, you know, and then I got into the collective and everything else. And yet this community is not just founded on the principles of just hating Star Wars as people would have them believe, but it's, and I don't even think it's a hatred, because let's be real, and I'm sure you can agree with me, no one wants to see their fandom fail. That's not the point. We want to see it thrive, because you mentioned you have kids, I have kids. We want, these are legacy things we want to pass on to our children, and we don't want to kill it, but we want to steer it in a direction. I mean, corporate America is doing a good enough job killing the shit. The fans are trying to save it. And I think that's what the media is missing the point behind the movement, is we don't want to kill it. We don't want to review bomb a movie or all of these other fictitious titles and things that they throw out. We are just calling out and stating opinions and problems within your shows. Maybe you take it and you go, you know what? People aren't responding really well to what we're putting out. Maybe we pivot and we shift and we change some things, because at the end of the day, when you create a movie, when you create a show, when you create a fucking cartoon, you are creating things for a consumer market. You know, you're not just hitting one demographic, you're trying to hit multiple demographics. That's how you have a successful show, television, cartoon, book, whatever it is. And I think somewhere along the way, these big wigs and people at the top of the food chain have forgotten the little guy, the base, and we're the reminder of what that base is.
I think it's actually I like that analogy. I think it's much more sinister than that. I like when you guys get a chance to read my book. The forward is written by Anthony Ergo, Ruin the Man Baby. It's a very nice declaration of who we are. Just from the bat, this is who we are. The Fandom Menace volumes 1 through 5. They're going to go through. It's going to be a progression. The Fandom Menace volume 1 is the beginning. It's how we got to where we are. and how we got to where we are up to the High Council. I'm going to start Volume 2 up at the High Council and go forward in time from there. But the very first chapter in Volume 1 covers Gamergate. And I think that that's important to cover because I show you that the media had been understanding the power of the internet from the infancy of it. There were a lot of independent voices that came out in the 90s and the early 2000s that caught traction, that were able to get their message or their opinion out there, that went against what some politicians and companies wanted. They wanted their narrative to be espoused. They didn't want people having that much control over their own voice and being able to get their opinions out there to different people. So you had many different tech companies leading into Silicon Valley and now Hollywood, but at the time it was Silicon Valley, that wanted to control the flow of information. I mean, that's what Google does right now. That's indisputable. And this was based on political ideology. So the politics were injected into the media during around 2010. There were papers being written by the U.S. government, commissioned by the U.S. government to understand how to manipulate population through gaming. And the journalists, they began to bring together groups of journalists, put them into the same kind of email chains, put them in the same kind of groupthink, and then use that to dispense information. And this happened all the way up into 2014, which is when it all broke with the whole Zoe post and the conspiracy, which is really the breaking point. That's finally when people were like, okay, we obviously have this person who is trading sexual favors for favorable game reviews. They're, basically having sex to progress themselves. We're going to call this out about ethics and journalism for gaming, and then see what happens. And so as they began to do that, the journalists fought back. But because by that point, the political wing, the political extremists, had already gathered up those email chains, had already gathered up all those journalists from all those various newspapers and their various magazines. They already had their in. And this is why less than 2 weeks after the conspiracy finally broke, the Zoe Quinn and the question of ethics and journalism, you had the Gamers Are Dead articles. 9 different publications all came out with the same effing article calling gamers misogynist, white, racist, post 30-year-old, incel, the whole 9 yards. Everything that we're getting now was then. The only difference is you swap out post 40 with post 30. And they put these SJ, that's when the social justice warriors first came out. They propped these people up, the mainstream media, the access media, game journalism. They all propped these people up. They completely ignored the question of ethics and journalism. They completely ignored the fact that Zoe Quinn was a terrible person, terrible fucking person, who would create hate mobs to shame people into submission and capitulation. But they propped her up as an SJW darling. Same with Anita Sarkeesian, though different, but the same. And this had been going on for so long. This then infected Hollywood. This came into Ghostbusters 2016. That was the first foray, the first real foray of injecting social justice politics into the medium. And what happened was, the fans didn't like it. The fandom was disgusted. They just didn't want it. It had nothing to do with misogyny. It had nothing to do with sexism. It was that these aren't the original characters and you're not respecting the lore and legacy that we grew up with. What happened? The fans got labeled as alt-right Trump's, not Trump supporting at the time, but the racist, sexist, blah, blah, blah. And so when you get to the point where we're at now, we have had a full 7 or 8 years of this in the public eye. So, when you look at these articles that are publishing, when you see an article that says toxic fandom, misogynist, racist, and as of the last few years, alt-right and Trump supporting, those are people that are on that mailing list. They are part of that echo chamber group thing. They are sent emails along with hundreds of other people that says this is the narrative of the day. The Fandom Menace, the Fandom Collective, the consumer movement, and the YouTubers that are making content, the bloggers like Ichibaka that are making content, people like Data Racer that are calling this shit out, the different websites like ChaosCentral.com, and there's new platforms coming out for people that are tired of hearing this bullshit because it's there. You can research, you can find it on the internet. It's right up there out in the open. Milo Yiannopoulos is the one that exposed it in the first place several years ago, and that's why his character was attacked and defamed. because he called out those journalists, those emailing lists of all those people that are all cohorting together to put out a narrative, and it's all based on political persuasion. They can point the finger at me and say, "Oh, you're just a Trump." I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I've been a left supporter my entire life, but I'm an alt-right, misogynist, racist hater because I don't like the fact that these properties, these media properties, are shutting down opinions and dispensing propaganda in order to condition the population into believing and voting and doing what they want them to do. The Fandom Menace, the Fandom Collective, and all the people that orbit this, we are all about freedom of thought, freedom to have your opinion. We will not be controlled in the greatest sense. That is what they are doing right now. The mainstream media, the politicians, the access media, the people in echo chamber Hollywood, they are all trying to reinforce one another to force you, to shame you into capitulating to their racist, sexist bigotry. And they will call you out as everything in the book, Nazi to everything, just to silence you, to shame you. And that's what we're standing up against. We are the new media.
Oh wow, that is wow. That was let me tell you something, man. It's very hard to get me at a loss of words, but it's funny you should mention the show media because I do, not to shamelessly plug myself, but I do an hour program or however long it goes with my core hosts from the Fandom Bridge crew and PB, Perp Minded, and all of us, and we do the shilling, and it's interesting. Like I go on and I look for these big media outlets and these interviews and stuff with these people. I've been accused of bullying, and I say to that, I can't bully someone who talks stupid. I'm just pointing out dumb comments. But I do the great shilling, and talking about that stuff, I have come across so many times different IGN, Collider, and various others that do echo each other. And it's interesting that you bring that up because there's various facets and there's a lot of them. And welcome, Mike 660. Good to have you here.
That is my editor and co-author. The Fandom Menace volumes would not be what they are without that man. Thank you. Hail Mike.
Good to have you on the Fandom Zone. So I mean, it's kind of funny that that you would mention that, because when I do the shilling, I say I will never run out of something to do on Monday, because these guys are everywhere, and they're very vicious in their attacks, and I kind of find it ironic that when I do something where I go over like interviews and things they say, and I highlight the keywords and the phrases, you know them, toxic masculinity and all of that, and I point it out. I guess if people come in, and especially with the Freddie Prinze Jr. thing, they're like, well, aren't you bullying Freddie? And I go, well, just a second ago, we all know the point in the video. And by the way, if you haven't checked out my shilling, check it out, because in the beginning, I went through that whole entire interview that he did, the whole podcast, and he says stupid stuff, not only just about Star Wars, just in general, very offensive things that I can kind of say maybe he didn't realize came off that way, but still grossly offensive.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've seen that Jeff Dyer's podcast.
No, but I will. I absolutely will check that out, Zod.
You want to see someone who is very much stuck in the 90s lingo and trying to come off as that hip guy you can relate to. And then the second thing that struck me was, it wasn't just Star Wars. He said a lot of things. To his credit, to be fair, because I'm non-biased here, he did say some good, funny points about the WWE because he worked there, and he brought up some great little stories that I'm not gonna lie, we all laughed on the panel. We were like, yeah, that's pretty funny, that's pretty good.
Okay.
And then it was buried, like, his good points were buried under a lot of stupid, asinine, condescending things that he says throughout the interview. And it's why that clip got highlighted. And it's like, hey, for every one good point you bring up, you attack people and and berate them with 20 different terrible points. And it's just like, how am I supposed to take you serious?
Well, at least 10% of what he's saying is he's got some sense.
Yeah, I'll give him credit over most of the shills that I deal with. At least with his interview, there were some things we could laugh at, and it wasn't necessarily at the person's expense. It was more of at the fact that he was legitimately funny and true.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the problem with Hollywood. It's morphing, and these people, even these old actors, are subscribing to this new wacky thing. And some of them, I feel, subscribe to it because they feel like they're in a cesspit of bullshit and nonsense. And if they talk out of school, they're going to disappear from the limelight, because that's what Hollywood does. They'll be blacklisted, they'll be blackballed, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. They won't be able to you're welcome, Mike. I feel like Oprah. You get a wrench. No, but they're going to be blacklisted, and they're going to be put into obscurity because they're not going with the norm. They're not prescribing to the Hollywood bullshit, and it's a shame.
You've got to, first off, I mean, I'm not an actor. I'm sure that profession can be difficult. They get paid handsomely to do what they do, but I mean, I can understand how it's difficult. They're also insulated inside of an echo chamber, and as I said, Hollywood's become more political than ever, and this is reinforced by things like the journalists, things like the media coming together and having, like you said earlier, you hear Collider and so forth saying the same things. That's because they're on that list. They're getting emails along with 100 other people saying, okay, this is the narrative of the day. This is the direction that we're going in. This is who we're ignoring. This is what we're attacking. And this is how we reference these people. And that has leaked into entertainment in Hollywood. So, yeah, there are this insulated echo chamber where they constantly hear the same things reverberating. Constantly the same themes going over and over again. And if you buck the system, then you're going to get kicked out of the system. So, I mean, there's variations in people and their ability to deal with these things. Freddie's gone. I will admit, when I get drunk, I sound like Freddie. When Doomcock was roasting him, I was like, oh man, that sounds like me when I'm pissed off. So, but I mean, like, we all have our faults. Freddie is a great example, I think, of somebody who's just plugged in enough to hear what everybody's saying. He's also trying to get some notoriety, so he's probably saying half of these things or most of these things just so he can get a job. But he's in all reality, he's irrelevant. He is irrelevant. But I like to use Freddie Prinze Jr. as kind of like an instrument to detect exactly what the thought process is in Hollywood, because he's not on any major contracts, which means he doesn't need to shut up. Mark Hamill, they shut him up quick when he started saying, that ain't Luke Skywalker, that's Jake Skywalker, I don't like this. And then they shut him up. Didn't hear anything else come out of Mark. And because he's still attached. Freddie isn't attached. So he can just spout off whatever he wants. And he can spout off all that hateful, nasty, we really do hate the plebs, the consumers, the fans, like, you guys are all stupid. This is how it is because I'm an elitist rich asshole, Mrs. Buffy or Mr. Buffy. And I
want to point out too the contrast, because Sarah Michelle Gellar, because while you were bringing up Buffy, Sarah Michelle Gellar was offered a project to do a new reboot of the Buffy. Now, they say that she bowed out because she wanted to give the new generation a chance, and the typical article when someone refuses. But I know she's not doing anything, and I think she bowed out because there's something in it that she saw, and she didn't like the direction. That's the only thing I can think of, because a lot of people, unless they don't like their character, which how long she played, I'm gonna assume she liked the character. A lot of people would jump at the chance to reprise that role, right? Take up that mantle, even if you're just passing it off, kind of like what they did with Cobra Kai. Those guys jumped at the opportunity to be like, yeah, you know, I want to, and it's been handled so well.
Cobra Kai is how you do it right. Cobra Kai gets its own chapter in the volumes.
Oh yeah, like that is to me, when I talk about how you're respecting legacy characters, that's pretty much my go-to these days, because it's the only new thing we've seen that has the balls to call out the culture the way it is right now, and to show you know, legacy passing on to the next generation so elegantly and so well. And bringing it back to the Buffy thing, I think she saw something within that script where she was like, I don't like the direction where this is going. And she's like, no, I don't, you know, I'll give it its plug, like, yay, new Buffy coming out, but I'm not going to, you know, endorse it.
And that's a shame too, because that's a built-in fandom already there. Like, actually, I was more of an Angel fan than a Buffy fan. But I like, you know, but Angel came from Buffy, so I like Buffy. But if they were to come back with the new Buffy series with her as a main character, I'm on it. I'm gonna check it out. You know, but in today's climate, you might be right. She might, I don't know, her husband talks kind of crazy, but she might still have a head on her shoulders and have looked at the script and the direction they were going. Who knows what they were trying to throw in there? Yeah, and I want to make a point in saying that in new things that are being made, I don't care. I've never cared if the character was gay. I was raised, you know, I have gay moms. Like, I have no problem with gay or even trans representation or any kind of representation, as long as the character is written well, as long as the story's respected. Let the character be generic. I mean, let the character grow into the story. You know, don't just make the story about the character. You see a lot of different entertainment properties are throwing that in your face right now. You know, like, hey, look, we have a black this, or we have a gay this, or we have a trans this. They're like, no, that's I don't care about that. What's the story? You know? So maybe she saw some of that going on and she decided to bow out. I don't know, but it's a damn shame, because that would have been a built-in hit, at least for the first couple episodes, if they had done it, you know, if they did it right.
Yeah, and I'm really thinking that there's something within that script that she saw. And, you know, these aren't final scripts, but or maybe she talked to the writers, you know, how they have their meetings and stuff like that. And I'm thinking there's something she saw, and she was like, you know, I don't want to be attached to that. Or maybe, and you got to remember, the person who's helming this is a female writer, and I'm not bashing female writers.
Right.
I'm sure there'll be people who go, oh my God, what are you trying to say?
No, there's plenty of good ones.
There's a lot of good female writers. Though I praised The Walking Dead, and I did a review on season 7, and I said 2 female writers came in and they totally started capturing the magic. And it might be too late because it lost a lot of its base along the way, but they recaptured what The Walking Dead was, and they made some phenomenal seasons. Agreed. So female writer has nothing to do with it. I think it's a lot about the channel you're on and what the company's bottom line for the show is, or what they feel the fan is, or where they should take the show. And so when I heard there were female writers connected, and then I heard some of the details, because I covered it on a late night talks, was that they were going with a female Slayer, which I'm like, okay, that's part of it.
Yeah.
And that they were saying it was going to be the first African-American Slayer, and that did a red flag, because I was like, wait a second, no, it's not. They had one in season 2, I believe, when they had the 2 Slayers at the same time. Or no, it was season 1. There was an African-American Slayer, because Buffy had died, and there was something with it, like it messed up the chain, because when a Slayer dies, another one takes her place. When she died, she was brought back to life, so it created like this weird little loophole thing where it still activated another Slayer, because technically she died. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And yeah, that was just my point. So I mean, it's been done before. It's not new ground.
And you you don't need to, like. Why would you prop that up? Why would you say this is going to be the first black Slayer? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just start the story off with her, and then have previous stories where there's been previous Slayers that have been from all different parts of the world? Like, that's what I mean. Like, make a decent story. Don't make the character. Don't make it about identity. Identity politics. Leave identity politics out of it. Make a great story. Doesn't matter what the race. Well, in this case, it does matter what the gender is, because the Slayers are women. But it doesn't matter what the race of the character is. And with the moment that you prop this person up and say, this is going to be the first Black Slayer, now you've just brought identity politics into it, and everybody over the last few years who have had enough of that is going to instantly turn away from it. Just like, like as a member of the Fandom Menace, I'm always looking out for that now. Like, I've been conditioned to the point where if the new project's coming up, the first thing I ask is it woke? That's like the first thing I look for. Is there any woke in here? Because if there's any woke in here, I just don't give a damn about it.
And that's the thing. That was the red flag for me, because I'm like, okay, why are you highlighting this? Because, I feel like if they're not trying to go that route, what they do is they are for the SJW base, which they seem to think is a base, and people wake up. These guys aren't buying your stuff. Okay, they're not making you your money. I mean, there's a lot of things that have been arguing with me, like, oh, what about Captain Marvel and blah 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 blah. And I was like, those wacky SJW politic heavy people didn't make those movies. The normal moviegoer who thought it was connected to something bigger made that movie.
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
I'm interested to see what number 2 does.
It was Infinity War and Endgame that made Captain Marvel a success. Don't get that twisted. And you're right. SJWs do not support your business model. But as I said, you have a concentrated effort in the media, politicians, in Silicon Valley, in Hollywood, in New York, in LA. You have a concerted effort to try and engineer to condition the population. So they're not going to give up until the investors start getting tired of it, which they are. So when the investors start getting tired of it, the people that are actually putting up the money, why are we constantly losing money? Why are our stocks falling? And when they finally get tired of it, things are going to change. That's why I say boycott 9. And that's, boycott anything that's woke. Don't buy those products. Let them take a hit like Gillette. Gillette learned too late, but it is what it is. They're not going to stop, because they are literally trying to engineer to change the process, the thought process of the population. They're trying to emasculate men. They're trying to defeminize women. They're trying to make us into these androgynous things. Oh man, we could talk about this shit for hours, but not to get too far off subject. Yes, the reason that this isn't going to stop just yet is because they are really trying to engineer. They're really trying to engineer the population and condition us to be the way they want us to be. It's going to be up to the investors. That's why it's important to boycott. That's why it's important not to buy these products. It's very important to keep getting online and keep talking, because eventually the investors are going to get tired of it, and then we'll start getting listened to. I'm waiting for the breaking point, and so's Ichibaka. Waiting for the breaking point when the access media finally starts realizing that they're going to have to jump that train and onto another, and then you're going to start to see pro Fandom Menace articles. I give that about a year and a half till we see those.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we see the inverse or the other side of it. And to answer Perp's question, because he said who's playing the new Buffy, they haven't released who's playing it, just the person who wrote it, which is Monica Alsu something. I'm not good with names, but her first name, yeah, her first name is Monica. They don't have the cast list, but she has been vocal about getting a diverse female of African descent to play the role of Buffy this time around. It was quoted in several different articles. So the reboot is happening. They're
going full Batwoman.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that. This was an interesting scenario for me. I've watched the first 2 episodes. I said I'm going to suffer through this painful series to see where it ends. And it's interesting, for all the propaganda hyping that they did for it, when you watch the show, it's not as SJW heavy as initially
Mhm.
As it initially presented, they did a sort of Captain Marvel thing, I feel, where the marketing went, oh, woman, fat woman, blah, blah, blah. And they clipped certain things from the show. And now watching the show, I'm like, well, just the politics aren't there. This is just a bad show. It's
Right.
just a really bad show. Like,
Yeah, that's what
Ruby
John Talks
Rose's
said.
acting is terrible.
Yeah, I was on John Talks was on last night, and he said I agree with him. It's the same thing. It's not, they market it to the SJWs to try and get the SJW audience, which didn't happen because SJWs don't support your business model. And then they did. They just put out it's kind of a bad product at the moment. I am willing personally to give it a little bit of time to see if it finds its stride. I'm a big Highlander the series fan, and that show didn't really find its stride until halfway through season 3. Then it was great. I love TNG. That show didn't find its stride until season 3, and then it was great. So I'm willing to give Batwoman a little bit more of a chance. If they do decide to go full woke, in the show, then now I'm done. I'm just not going to deal with it. I dropped Supergirl because of that. But
yeah, I have always said since the beginning, and that's just taking their blatant feminism out of it. I've said Super Woman is trash, or Supergirl. I've never liked that show, and it's not. Originally, I thought it was going to be for the feminism, but I went back through and tried to watch the first season. It was just more of the writing has a lot of plot holes in it.
Yeah.
And the effects are either garbage or okay.
Look, I can excuse effects if you give me a good story. I like plenty of cheesy movies and cheesy productions because the story was decent. And I really wanted to like Supergirl because I like the character Supergirl. And, so I went through that first season okay, and I was glad to see Martian Manhunter and Metallo. Like, they were really trying. They were really trying. And, they teased it with Superman until the second season. And I was okay with that because, okay, let's build Kara up and then move on to Kal-El. But but then it decided to go full on woke, and I was done at that point. Like, I'm not dealing with identity politics. I'm not dealing with woke entertainment. If you start feeding me that, I'm out. I'm just not interested.
I don't know if you knew because of the name or my icon, but I'm a huge DC fan, and to me, the Arrowverse is dying in a sense because I like Arrow's on its way out. I am going to do a review on the premiere episode, and like I don't know what the hell was discussed in the writers' room, but that first episode was amazing. Like just back to what it was when the first season came out, and I'm really glad because I'm thinking if you start strong, then it's always a good idea to end strong. So it's clear they have an end game in mind. I want to say, with the way the writing is, it almost felt like they've written this in mind, like everything was flowing very nicely. But then I saw something that really pissed me off where I think the Arrowverse is going. And there's a scene, they're coming out with a new show called The Canaries, and it's an all-female version, and it's led by Black Canary, which, okay, I'm fine with Black Canary.
Yeah.
I like the character or whatever else, but I'm starting to notice a trend because now if you look at the remaining shows that are on the CW Arrowverse, you have the Legends of Tomorrow, which they're a pretty diverse group.
Yeah, I think it's a good show.
But yeah, they got a good balance.
Yeah.
You look at Flash, and that's got a good balance. And then Black Lightning, I never cared for. So, I mean, it seems like they're pushing a lot of the male characters out for more female-centric teams. And it really bugs me.
I don't know I like female superheroes. I like looking at women. Like, you give me a great story, I don't care. Throw it to all girls team. I'm down as long as they're as long as I can appreciate not only the story but the aesthetics. I'm not gonna lie. I like looking at beautiful women. But I don't. That part doesn't mind. Woke the woke direction is what bothers me. It's all about we're women and we're strong, like the way Batwoman was projected. Like you just lost me. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why can't this just be a great character?
Now, here's my problem though. The Stephen Amell's Green Arrow is probably going to die. That's not a spoiler. It's been, if you've been following them, it seems to be the general direction. I won't know until the final. But it's been heavily hinted at that something is like that is going to happen, and they show the flash forwards and the flashbacks now, and the new crew that they're kind of propping up. I can't stand them whatsoever. There's like maybe 2 people I like on that whole
neither can I
team, and like here's the thing, I'm feeling like there's a push. And I won't know until these other shows come out, but I feel like that this new Canary series and the other things that they're talking about, they're launching to expand the Arrowverse, is going to be a push towards the Bat women formula, and that they're going to start interjecting that a lot. And I really hope not. I really hope that the backlash that Batwoman got is going to kind of slow them down with that direction of where they clearly wanted to take it, because the Arrowverse started out with Arrow, and it did something that I didn't think most shows can do. It took the Green Arrow and made him a hell of an intriguing character. And in the comics, he was always good, but I think the TV show really brought him to the forefront. And Stephen Amell nailed that character, like from day one.
Yes,
that first episode, he nailed it. He sold me as the Green Arrow, and now they're talking about having a female Green Arrow, and this is where I get leery about the show, because it's like, why are you swapping out Stephen Amell's character for a female Green? Like, what is behind your push? Like you said, I look for the red flags now, even in my fandom. So it's very concerning.
I mean, look. I am a DC fan. I'm going to say I'm a DC fan more than a Marvel fan. So, when I look at the DC cinematic universe, I am a little bit more critical, but at the same time, I'm nostalgic. And one of the things that they just completely screwed the pooch on was not integrating the Arrowverse into the movies. If you brought Amell over as Green Arrow into the movies, you would have pulled an entire fandom. Even if the show is starting to lose interest, or has been losing interest for a while, you're still going to pull a lot of people dedicated to him and his portrayal of Green Arrow into the cinematic universe. They screwed the pooch on that with the Flash too, because I love the Flash. That's my favorite Arrowverse show right now is the Flash. Don't watch Supergirl. I do watch Legends. Black Lightning's okay, but you know what? To me, oh God, I can't think of his name. Netflix, the way Netflix did the Marvel, those Marvel shows were great too. Daredevil, and I can't think of his damn name. Who's the black guy? I can't think of his damn name. Do you know? Did you watch those shows?
Yes, there was.
Man. What the hell was his name?
Luke Cage.
Luke Cage. Thank you. God, how did I forget that? Luke Cage was great. And that was a show that was set in the way that it should have, because the character was created in the 70s. It was a kind of a black empowerment character, and that's the way they made that series, and I loved it. Don't have to be black to love that, so doing different types of making creative choices and pitching a certain type of show doesn't mean you have to pitch to that general audience. I mean, to that specific audience. You can make something like that to our general audience. Luke Cage was great, I thought. It's just, God, I lost my train of thought. But that woman, hopefully they'll learn and make better stuff, and I hope Ruby does better, and I hope the show progresses better, and I hope that they're able to find some kind of traction. I don't want it to fail. I have nothing against Batwoman. I just have a problem with pandering to SJWs.
Yeah, and I think that is the thing when we talk about when we talk about a lot of these shows is and I've done it myself where you kind of turn yourself off from a show based on how they start to market it, and you go, oh, I see where this is going. But I still gave Batwoman a chance, and I said my complaint was not the SJW thing. I just thought it was boring. I thought that first episode was boring. I thought the fight scenes were trash. I didn't really care for it, and the second episode didn't really get much better.
Yeah. I mean, there's ways you could do it. Like, okay, Batwoman's 110 pounds soaking wet. All right, you now. I made this point the other night on a live show. One of my childhood friends or my teenage friends was the women's Taekwondo champion in the Olympics, and she could kick your freaking ass. Right? You got her into a bear hug, maybe you'd have a chance. Like you overpowered her. But if you got anywhere within range of her ability, as a man versus a woman, your strength as a man was not going to be an advantage because she was just that good. So you can build characters like a Batwoman, and you can have the fighting style realistic in a sense that that's freaking believable. I've been watching the Highlander series over again. That's why I mentioned it earlier. And the character Amanda, oh God, Elizabeth Grayson, the character Amanda, the way that they have her, she's doing flips, she's doing backflips, she's she's all over the place, but in no fight scene do they have that character Amanda overpower a man because it's not believable. She's a thin woman. But when it comes to speed, and like striking speed and agility, she's got you. There's ways to make women characters that are believable ass kickers without giving them superpowers.
There was a show that I really loved, and it's on Cinemax, and actually my girlfriend started watching it with me, and it was kind of funny because she made a comment of, well, my goodness, this is such a long fight scene, but there's a fight at the end of season 1, and it's one of my favorite shows, where it's just this girl, and she's basically a jewel thief, but she's also kind of an assassin because her dad is the head of the Ukrainian mob, and so she's badass, but she uses a lot of guns and things like that to kind of even up the odds. She's like a really great shot and whatnot, but she has a straight up fist fight with this Ukrainian dude who's kind of like her brother, and he's a big guy. And they're in the guy's apartment because she just went back there, and this guy is tracking them or whatever else, and they have this 20-minute fight, and she gets beat from one end of this room to the other, and actually wins the fight by luck because they both stab each other, and he's 2 inches away from something vital, and she just happened to hit something vital, so she doesn't even win, let alone by skill. You could argue it was a very lucky shot, and she's still the next 2 episodes, she's still messed up and groggy and all hallucinating and whatnot. But watching that fight, it was to me such a well choreographed, thought out fight because every move they do, they tailor specific to her character and her body weight because she's a thin, sexy looking character on this show who's supposed to portray this person whose looks will disarm you, and then she can whoop your ass. But it also acknowledged the fact there were limits to what she could do. They were okay, this is a dude who could bench press me, and it's not going to be an easy fight. And she gets her head smashed into a wall. He picks her up WWE style and smashes her head against the ceiling, and then slams her on the ground. And you could tell she's hurt, but because of her training, she blocks out the pain so she doesn't pass out. But it was just such an elegant, and if you haven't seen it, just for nothing else, go check out Banshee season 1. Go to I think it's the episode before the finale, and then just watch that last 20 minutes, and you will see the most epic fight scene between a man and a woman and how well they depict it. And they don't handicap the guy. I mean, by all rights, you're thinking, man, this guy is going to win at any time because they disarm each other or they run out of bullets or something early, so the guns aren't a factor. So now you're just going on strength and fighting ability. And this guy can clearly, he knows the same martial arts as she does. So now you're taking into account not who is better or more proficient in karate or taekwondo, but who has now the body weight, the mass, the speed, and she's faster than him, but she sure as shit is not stronger than him. And it was just such an elegant way to portray the fight that I've ever seen, and it's why it's one of my favorite shows. I mean, some stuff they do is outlandish, but never when it comes to the action between the different characters and the fighting and the gunplay is all pretty grounded. So, and I watch that, and then I look at other shows, and I'm like, maybe I set a high bar, but I'm like, man, that could never happen. Like you're trying to sell me on this. And to Batwoman's credit, when I went back through, because my my cohort PB had me rewatch the episode, so I did. And when I went back through that first fight, she did use a lot of world stuff. You know, she used the frying pan to hit the dude over the head with. You know, she pulled down the pipe. So the fighting was believable. I mean, to be honest, the first time I watched it, I had fallen asleep. Because for me, it was just boring. It was just boring. I wasn't pissed at the fact that, oh, you know, whatever. I was just mad because this is supposed to be an extension of the Batman world, and there's no action. Like, and if you're gonna do a show that's gonna be dialogue heavy, right, or Quentin Tarantino-esque, I like to call it, then I'm gonna hold your dialogue and your facial cues and stuff to a whole new level, because I've been spoiled by Quentin Tarantino, and Quentin Tarantino can make you watch 3 hours literally of people just talking, because the way that they influctuate the words, the way they look at each other, the different facial expressions, the jokes, the sharp tongued dialogue, the back and forth, the tongue in cheek. He knows how to sell dialogue to where you don't feel like you're watching necessarily just two people talking. You feel like you're watching like this sparring match of words back and forth. And you know, Quentin Tarantino, anything can pop off at any moment. So this can turn from a regular conversation to all of a sudden people are just like shooting each other or something like that. You don't know what Quentin Tarantino. Yeah. And now you look at Batwoman, nothing. Like, so hollow, no emotion. Nothing. I mean, you know, she's supposed to have this dialogue with her father about her long lost sister. And you're talking about someone you thought was dead. And she delivers the lines so wooden. I mean, you can throw in like some Visine or something, get some tears going, nothing. I'm not sold that you give a shit about this person because you're not delivering it to me. Like the father, for the most part, he was all right in the show. But their back and forth was terrible. Like, honestly, Alice has become the most intriguing character to me because her performance is hammy. It's over the top. But when you put her in the sea of the other actors, she's the only one who stands out to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think maybe the director was trying to get Ruby to be kind of stoic, like Bruce is, you know? Like, you know, trying to get more into that kind of Batman-ish character by emulating the type of person Bruce is. I don't know. Hopefully that's the answer. Maybe she has a better acting range. I don't know. That's the best answer that I can give. It's either just terrible acting or just bad direction.
I mean, I don't know. I want to say that, to Ruby Rose's credit, one of my favorite movies is John Wick, and I love all three of them. And when I saw her in John Wick 2, she was pretty good, but she didn't talk. So I couldn't really gauge. And then I watched Orange is the New Black, and she was pretty interesting character in that. As a matter of fact, that's where I was like, oh, hey, who's this? That shower scene. Anyone who's seen the show knows what I'm talking about. I watched that quite a few times. But anyways, I was like, oh, okay, who's this Ruby Rose chick? I gotta check her out. And like even the movies, The Meg and stuff like that, she wasn't the greatest character, but she was serviceable. I was like, okay, she's pretty decent. So I was like, okay, they got I wouldn't call her like a star, you know, an A-lister, but they got something here.
She has potential.
She has potential.
And she is pretty. She's a beautiful woman. And you know, they're trying to pitch, I think, to the bisexual and lesbian audience with her a little bit, which is fine. You know, I mean, that's an audience as well. But as a straight guy, the whole "I'll steal your girlfriend" kind of thing, that kind of attitude, that puts me right off. You know? But
yeah,
that's just
and this is where I think the direction is hurting. I honestly am leaning now more towards direction and writing as opposed to the people playing the roles, because to see the inverse of the Alice character getting more and more intriguing by the second, and me wanting to know more, I'm literally tuning in just to find out more about her backstory than I am about the main character of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I start to look at it and go, I'm starting to think this is more of writing direction as opposed to actor and actress. Because remember, you can have an A-list team. We've seen a lot of movies by all rights that should have been good, that had good, solid A-list actors, and they horribly go bad because you don't have the strong writing and the strong directing. You got to have people giving directions. And, you know, to the credit of Captain Marvel, if I ever give it any credit, I don't completely blame Brie Larson. There's a lot of parts where I feel like the director and the direction wasn't there. Like, there's a lot of confusing mixed tones in that movie. And I could see where you could see some of the potential shine between her and Samuel L. Jackson. When they're having back and forth, it was engaging, and God help me, I even chuckled at times. Probably more for Samuel L. Jackson, but I could see the potential there. And I accredit this to the same thing with Batwoman. It's like the writers and the directors don't know what they want to go with. I feel like 20 different kinds of vibes. And they forget, yes, Batman is stoic, but not when he's Bruce Wayne.
Right.
When he's Bruce Wayne, he's putting on the persona of a normal everyday guy. So he's a playboy, he's a philanthropist, he's whatever he needs to be in the public eye.
Right.
He's stoic and serious when he's the Batman. That's when he talks less, or he has the gravelly voice, or he's instilling fear, or serious.
It's kind of like the Superman thing, you know, like Superman is who he is, and Clark Kent is the alter ego. It's the same thing with Batman. No, Batman is who he is. Bruce Wayne is the alter ego.
Exactly, the duality. And I think where the show is dropping the ball is it doesn't got a grasp on having a duality. Like, I think Ruby Rose can play Batwoman herself very well, because she's got the stoic thing down.
Yeah,
where she's dropping the ball is Kate Kane.
Yeah, and I what I'm hoping is, and like I said, I'm not judging it off these first 2 episodes. I'm going to give it a good half a season to see where it goes. You know, just to see if there's any chance or any hope of the series becoming anything. And I'm hoping that the stories create that divide, you know, between the two personalities, the two sides of that personality. We'll see.
Yeah, and I want to say that that it's there and that it's got the potential, because we saw the crossover, and I gotta say, her parts were actually really good. They had that jab with you know, Supergirl, because you always got to put a feminist plug when she comes on screen. Yeah. But you know, when I watched it, I go, oh, Ruby Rose kind of, you know, she didn't say much, but she sold me on what her part was, and she felt like more of a character. And then in her own show, she feels like hollow and wooden. And I'm hoping it's just, oh, this is the genesis, and then as we get more into her becoming Batwoman, she'll become more believable. Like a big nod to them for the fact of that one scene in episode 2 where she didn't know what all the gadgets did. I was like, okay, all right, cool. So you're not making her Mary Sue right now.
Right.
She's still learning. She doesn't know what everything that Bruce Wayne does, because only he knows his tech. Not even the Lucius Fox ripoff knew what everything did.
Yeah. Yeah, well, another thing that I want to give her is that I think it was kind of the Captain Marvel effect, where you had her in that crossover before she had really established herself in a show. So it was kind of more generic to who she was as an actress and her portrayal of that part, also dealing with other directors who had done the other shows and writing staff that knew, the kind of flow they were looking for. Same thing with Captain Marvel. When if it wasn't for Brie Larson being an open fucking segregationist, right, just being an awful person. When you see Captain Marvel in Endgame, she's a hell of a lot more likable, in my opinion, than the Captain Marvel movie, because she was under the direction of other, she was fresh to the character, it was more generic. You had other writers and a director around that knew what direction they wanted her to go in. The interaction between her and Thor, for instance, wasn't bad. That was okay. But honestly, what brings down Brie Larson, in my opinion, or anything that she does, is just her as a person. Like, I just can't stand her as a person, so it's hard for me to objectively critique it. But if I can, I would say that same thing with Ruby in the crossover. It was different than the show because they're really trying to find themselves in the show, whereas she was just showing up to do one episode with other people who had already been doing this for years and kind of probably coaxed her and probably helped her out in how she was portraying. So I'm going to give this. I'm a DC fan. I'm going to give the show. I'm going to try and give it a little bit and see if it gets any better. But
yeah, right there with you. I will write it out. See me, I'm going to write it out the season, and I'm hoping when you get to that next crossover that maybe within that crossover itself, we're gonna see a shift in her character, or maybe we'll have gotten enough episodes to see where her character is going. And I tell everyone too, you wanna not judge everything so harshly right away. There's been a lot of shows. I remember one of my all-time favorite shows, or it goes into like my top 3 favorite shows, is Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad to me is an example of everything you do right in writing, tying stuff up, and stuff like that.
Agreed.
But if you just go by that first season, until you get to like those last 2 episodes, the first season is kind of a little boring in some parts. It's you got to really invest there. He is doing what a good writer does, and he's showing you the life that this person had, and he's really diving into it. And it doesn't start really going down, and you don't start really seeing the changes until you start getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Almost into the second season is where you see the pivot and Walt. But you have to wait to get that payoff. Yeah. And if it was one of those situations, I'd understand. And some shows do that where, it's like, I can't judge it by the first few episodes. But once I got past them, oh, man, this thing just, I see what the writers were doing now. And I'm praying it's one of those situations like, okay, they're trying to get their footing, and now we're ready to go. We're going to get into some action. We're going to have some stuff going down. If this is supposed to be their flagship, I want to see her taking the reins and doing some cool stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. And bringing up kind of on subject, bringing up Breaking Bad, it really, for people that enjoy some shows that were so well written and so well done, like Revolution, only got 2 seasons. They didn't even end it. And the guy that played Gustav was in there. It's a shame when you see shows that have such potential and they cancel them. Not woke, great entertainment, an original concept, actors just always on point. And then you have to struggle to enjoy a superhero show that you should be loving, that appeals to the geek in you.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Firefly.
yeah, Firefly. Yes, Firefly. Yes.
Thank God we got a movie, because I thought forever that those last episodes were going to be it, and I was like, oh, I brought the box set and everything, and then thank God we got the rest of that through the movie, and he was able to tie up most of what he started in that series. But Dollhouse was another one. We could talk for days how many shows that had so much potential and then they just get cut short because they're on regular TV and they just don't find that base that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And then you got shows that'll run 20 seasons.
So do you want to wrap up by talking about the fact that Star Wars Episode 9 hasn't wrapped up yet, and it's 2 months away?
Yeah. Thanks. Yes. Speaking to wrap it up, we got to wrap it up on Star Wars because of your fancy book cover. Yeah,
that's a concept cover. Actually, Nick Nugent is making the actual cover, but I needed something to let everybody know it's coming. It's coming
to a theater near you. So to wrap things up, yeah, I just caught that article. I think I was going on the Twitter. Oh God, dating myself. The Twitter.
Boomer.
I was on the Twitter and I saw a post about that. No, I was on Twitter and one of the bridge crew, we like to call him, LB. If you haven't checked him out, go check out the banter. Oh yeah, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
He had just posted something as a matter of fact about that, and I said, dude, we're like, it is upon us now. What the fuck, JJ? This movie, okay, Stephen, this movie has been a train wreck from day one.
Yep.
Since TLJ, from day one, everything I've seen, everything I've heard come out of this, the artificial hype from Collider and IGN and the other shills, and their stupid theory crafting. And don't worry, on Mondays, the shilling guys, I will have something on that. But
nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna, because I just saw something on Collider, and so I think I'm gonna do my shilling on them because, oh boy, they've got some theories, and you guys are gonna want to hear their stupid ideas that they've come up with as usual. And to watch this from beginning to end, it's like everything that they've been doing has been or announcing has been kind of fumbling in the dark or really reaching. And now the production and they're reshooting stuff, and it's like, man, you're almost on release date. What the hell is going on?
Listen, guys, it's going to be so easy to send the message. They are gifting this to us. All we have to do is not pay to see Episode 9. Go see Cats. All right. All you have to do is not pay for it. The budget for this is going to be astronomical. All right. Solo flopped in it. It lost, like they say, 80 million. It was probably a little bit more than that. And they had to do that. They had to redo that movie twice. We're talking about a production that is still going on right now and has the potential for 6 different endings. They've been doing this over and over and over and over again so many times. It's going to be so easy to send a message. They are trying so hard to repair the damage done in TLJ. And I can't wait for like next year or the year after when all the NDAs have expired and all the actors can start talking about what the hell happened behind the scenes, because this is a perfect example of what happens when you have inept leadership who places people in creative control who don't understand what they're doing, but they have an agenda to press. This is what happens. You create the Fandom Menace.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a good spot to leave it at, because I can't plug anything better than that. So thank you for definitely coming on and hanging out here in the Fandom Zone. I've started my sort of old little movement of Fandom Zone because I wanted a place where people could come and have a great time and chill with General Zod, or you can come for my stellar reading. Anyone who's in the chat knows how big of a joke that is. My reading's terrible. But damn it, I do it for the fans. Half of them come in to listen to me read an article terribly and massacre names.
Man, I've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for having me on. I'll come on anytime. Anytime I can, man. I'm really busy, but if you ever want to shoot me a link or something, I'd love to join you another time.
Oh yeah, we definitely have to have you on the late night side of things. You see how the crazy side lives.
I'm up late sometimes, just working, and I would love to. I'll let you know if I see you on and there's a spot open. I'll shoot you a message or something. See if there's a space open.
Yeah, and I definitely loved having you on, and keep up the good work. It's good to see you on here, and the bottom line being, no matter what your perception of this movement, I found a lot of people through here, and not everyone that I've talked to is associated or wants to be associated with the collective or the Menace. I guess at this point, I just fall into the collective and the Menace. That's what this channel is. But we respect all opinions and views and things like that, and let other people know that of the things that we're doing, and that we're bringing non-biased views, because the media doesn't give a shit anymore. That's apparent. Just go look at any review. Go look at the Joker reviews. Go look at Zombieland. I'll be covering that on my next Late Night Talks.
Are they coming after Zombieland?
Oh yeah, coming after it hard. They're in particular coming after Woody Harrelson's character for being misogynistic and stuck in the 90s. Which, if they
the character.
Exactly. If they watch the movie, which I have a suspicion they don't, then you would see that's the joke in the movie, that these hippie people are like the joke. That's the society the way it is. And the media knows that. They don't like it. They don't want it to be called out. So, of course, they're going to attack anything that brings their idiocy into light. But anyways, thank you very much. And, go ahead and let us know anything you got coming on, what chapter General Zod's going to be in, anything like that.
Well, if I cover the collective, it'll be somewhere in volume 5.
Oh, awesome. I can use that as my guide for when I get future Kryptonians.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me on, sir.
All right. So, do you have anything coming up, or any projects or anything we should be on the lookout for before we go?
The Indiegogo will be kicking off soon. I will let everyone know. Finalizing the promotional video for it. Just waiting for my cover artist to give me something that I can present. It won't be the finalized cover, but it'll be an idea of what it will be. As soon as I get that, I'll be launching it. I can promise the first 250 copies will get to you before Rise of Skywalker. If we sell out more than 250 in a relatively short amount of time, then we may extend the amount of books that we're putting out. But I'm not going to be able to ensure that they will get there before Rise of Skywalker. So check me out at Lodonis on Twitter. Please subscribe to my channel, Author Stephen Walton. I'm taking it seriously now and really trying to put out content for you guys while I'm doing 1,000 other things. And I appreciate the support. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. I am, my goal, it's a pretty lofty one, but my goal is to get all of the collective and all of the Menace one day to all be on this interview show, so that I can get everyone's perspective, and I can have everyone here, and even do smaller channels too, because I like to get smaller channels out there. And once again, I want to give a shout out to Tommy, who's still in the chat. If you guys didn't know, he reached that 100 sub milestone, so go ahead and check out his channel, check out his content, and show him some love, because he's been a huge supporter for not just my channel, but other various channels within our group, and he's a great guy. So make sure you go head over there and check him out.
Definitely subscribe to Tommy. He's a great cat. And Zod, I have an interview show every Monday. Let me schedule you for one in the future.
Oh yeah. Shoot me a DM. I would love to be on there. It'd be weird to have the tables turned.
Yeah.
But everybody, thank you for coming on to the Fandom Talks. I appreciate you. You're all breathtaking. Don't forget, I will have the Great Shilling on Monday. I'm thinking that I want to do a watch more anime this Sunday. I'll see if my cohorts Perp and Fatal J are not busy. We'll see. We're trying to get to Bleach now and tell you why you should be watching it and how it's a landmark anime. And also, I will be releasing a slew of videos. I just got some new video software, so before I release my reviews, I want to make sure I understand how it works. So if you see a couple of movie reviews that look janky over this week, that'll be me experimenting. And, forgive me now for if they look kind of weird. I'm going to be just messing around. But once I get my flow, I'll get a good flow and a good thing. We're going to have the Great Shilling this Monday, and it is going to be awesome. I'm going to be swinging back around to Collider and the Rule of Two Jedi Council nonsense they put on. They're gonna put theories out about this final trailer. It's a theory on the final trailer and what it's gonna be about. My God.
You know what? Lucasfilm doesn't even know what it's going to be about.
So we're going to highlight those idiots. And then also, Late Night Talks is going to return with a vengeance. I'm sure by Tuesday there's going to be all sorts of great stories for me to talk about. So definitely join us. You never know who's going to pop by the Fandom Zone. So as always, thank you, everybody. And remember, the only rule here in the Fandom Zone, kneel before Zod. Goodbye, everybody.
Hail the Phantom Menace.